So shall we start the program?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So a very good morning to everyone present here. On behalf of the Economics Association of Sri Venkateswara College, I, Navya Jindal, the President of the Economics Association, would like to extend a warm welcome to our guests, professors, students, and thank them for joining us this morning. The restrictions of the pandemic have taken a toll on our freedom, but being the social beings we are, with technological tools up our sleeves, we have been able to overcome the barrier of distance between us. In fact, thanks to Google Meet and Teams, we have all logged in from different parts of the country in real time. On that note, I would like to invite the teacher in charge of the economics department and the association, Dr. Brahma Reddy sir, to address today's virtual gathering.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Navya. A very good morning to you all. Respected Dr. K.P Krishnan sir, Dr. Seema Gaur ma'am, dear colleagues and students. As you all are fully aware, the Blisspoint of the Economics Association is one of the most popular events of Delhi University. Students from across the country participate in a number of events to showcase their talents. This year, we have chosen digital economics as the theme of our festival, keeping in mind the digital revolution that has been taking place across the globe. Particularly, we have seen how useful the digital technologies, particularly during the pandemic, the way we were able to do lectures and various other meets. And also the government of India has set a target of $1 trillion economy for digital activities. We are very grateful that Dr. K.P. Krishnan sir agreed to be the chief guest of the event. We wanted it to be in physical mode, but due to restrictions imposed by Delhi University, which says that only class activity is permitted and no other activities can be permitted, we are able to do it on online mode. In fact, Dr. K.P. Krishnan sir, we invited him in 2011 when sir was in Financial Markets Division of Ministry of Finance. And we invited sir for a lecture on financial market reforms. Sir was very kind enough to agree to come to college, but due to some administrative reasons, we could not hold that event. Sir, thank you very much for joining us today. Dr. Seema Gaur, ma'am, in our conversation, we have thought of a policy, matters discussion regard to the digital economy. Thank you very much, ma'am, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. I think there's some disturbance. Yeah, thank you. I would now like to invite our Vice Principal, Dr. Venkateswara sir, to share his thoughts with everyone.
They could not join yet, Navya. Probably they will join during the course of the time.
Sure, sir. Okay, sir.
We would request now, the sir to go ahead with his speech.
Sir, I just wanted to speak a few more lines.
Yes.
So this year, we mark the 30th edition of Blisspoint, organized annually by the Economics Association, the most well-known and highly regarded fest in North India, and has seen active participation from colleges across the city and across the country in the last few years. Spread over 2 days, the fest unfolds a kaleidoscope of events, including but not limited to academic seminars, panel discussion, and events such as Shark Tank, paper presentation, case study competitions, quiz, etc. Despite this edition of Blisspoint being held virtually, we are happy to reveal that we've received an overwhelming response for our events. 2 of our events recorded 500 plus registrations, a new high even for us. We hope that each participant has a pleasant experience over the next 2 days. Next, I would like to thank the members, event heads, post holders, and my fellow core team members from the Economics Association for working tirelessly over the last few weeks to ensure smooth organization of every event and session. As we finally commence day one of Blisspoint 2022, each one of us is excited to see how the fest pans out. I would now request Naman to welcome our guests.
We are delighted to welcome our esteemed guests and express our gratitude to them for taking out time from their busy schedule to be a part of today's webinar. We hope that today's proceedings prove to be a rich and stimulating learning experience for all of us. The chief guest of Blisspoint 22 is Dr. K.P Krishnan, a passionate and result-oriented ex-IES officer and a leader par excellence, who has served in various fields and secretariat positions in the Government of India. Hello?
Naman, you were not audible. You got disconnected.
Okay, sir. So I'll speak now.
Yeah.
We are delighted to welcome our esteemed guests and express our gratitude to them for taking out time from their busy schedules to be a part of today's webinar. We hope that today's proceedings prove to be a rich and stimulating learning experience for all of us. The chief guest of Blisspoint 22 is Dr. K.P Krishnan, a passionate and result-oriented ex-IES officer and a leader par excellence, who has served in various fields and secretariat positions in Government of India, Government of Karnataka, and the World Bank. Currently, he is working as the IEPF Chair Professor of Economics at the National Council of Applied Economic Research, New Delhi. Thank you, sir, for joining us today, and each one of us is eager to hear you express your priceless reflection. The stage is all yours, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Naman. Morning, Dr. Reddy, all the assembled faculty. Morning to my colleague, Seema. Am I audible? Am I visible?
Yes, sir.
And is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You are able to see the screen without difficulty, because in whatever I'm doing, whether right or wrong, I'm not able to see you if I'm able to see the screen. So I'll continue to watch, try and watch, look at all of you. So if things are visible, may I start?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is, I'm expected, this is 9:45. So I'll go on till about 10:30. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Once again, thanks all of you. Really happy to be here today. As Dr. Reddy mentioned, I should have had the opportunity to actually speak to you a little earlier on another occasion, and that for reasons beyond us could not materialize. I still wish it were a real in-person encounter, in-person presentation, notwithstanding the fact that a lot of us are strong supporters of the digital world. I don't yet believe that it's a substitute for the in-person world for at least my generation. Nevertheless, given the sort of external conditions, I guess this is better than not being able to communicate at all. What I will try and do in this presentation is to basically take you through some aspects of what constitutes digital economics and I guess in a sort of conversational way, all of us know what it means. My attempt will be to try and situate what we all know in terms of experience, in terms of day-to-day life, interaction with this digital world, the implications of all this for the theory that we have understood, the theory that we have learned, and focus on what are the implications of this new digital world for the sort of consumers, for the producers, and for public policy. Digital economics, as is apparent, is the study of the digital economy. And I have used a sort of a very standard definition here. This definition from Goldfarb and Tucker is a very popular definition. It doesn't say really very much in the title, but the sort of the details are the more interesting one. For example, digitalization or the incorporation of digital technology impacts producers, it impacts consumers. So in the Goldfarb and Tucker definition, it essentially, the study of digital economics involves examining how digital technology impacts economic activity. And it basically what it does is it looks at standard economic models and impacts or studies the impact of the changes that digital technology brings about and the primary disruption that the digital world causes on the sort of standard normal economy that you and I are familiar with is a huge fall in costs, which is the result of the sort of the digital economy. Now, before we go on to explore this further, let us understand what do we mean by the digital economy. I think we all understand in an intuitive sense what it means, but the best broad and most rigorous definition of digital economy that I found is in the OECD. As you're familiar, this is the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, and this is a comprehensive 2020 definition which says the term digital economy primarily incorporates all the economic activity that is either reliant on or may not be reliant on, but is hugely improved by, enhanced by the use of digital inputs, including, and the digital inputs can be in many forms, digital technologies, digital infrastructure, digital services, and data. Each of these terms is much more sort of explained in much more detail in the OECD publication. Sorry?
Sir, sorry to interrupt, but are you changing your slides?
No, I'm still on slide number 3.
Sir, but we cannot see your slide.
You cannot see my slide?
No, sir.
No slide is visible?
Only our front page is visible with colors like blue, magenta, and pink.
Oh, because when I checked, I thought you said the slides were visible. Now?
We saw the first slide, sir, when you first displayed. After that, there is no change. And
okay, let me go back. This is what is visible, is it? Is this the slide that is visible?
Yes, sir. The slide with the blue and other colors is visible, sir.
Okay, then instead of trying to monkey around with this, I have forwarded the slides to Dr. Reddy.
Yes, sir.
Possible for one of you to upload that and
yes, sir.
move it as and when I request you to? Not a
yes,
problem?
sir. Yes, sir.
So I'm closing the presentation mode here and I'm moving into the screen where I can watch all of you.
Okay, sir.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so one of you can display the slides.
Is it visible, sir?
Yeah, it's visible to me. Is it visible to the class?
Naman, is it visible to you?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah, can we move to slide number 3? Thank you.
Sir, I will take just 30 more seconds, sir,
Yeah, please.
to make the PPT fully visible.
Excellent. Thank you.
Is it okay, sir?
I can see it very clearly. I presume the rest of the audience can also see it.
Yes, sir.
We are seeing it, sir.
Excellent. So I had covered the definition of, after this, the next one. Thank you. So I was on this, having touched upon the word digital economics and saying the obvious thing, namely, digital economics is the study of digital economy. We are on the OECD definition of what constitutes digital economy. And the OECD definition is a rather broad one. This is a 2020 publication of OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, based out of Paris, which is a club of the more developed countries, does a lot of very good quality economic research, and their publications are very rigorous and well-researched documents. Their definition is the digital economy incorporates economic activity that are reliant on, or the second category, significantly enhanced by, improved by the use of digital inputs. And there are various kinds of digital inputs. And in this sense, the digital economy as defined incorporates, refers to producers, consumers, and government as the policy maker, all of whom are using digital inputs as mentioned above in their economic activities. The first of the definitions actually started in the mid 1990s, and it's been evolving. And the one that I've put out before you is the 2020 publication definition. The next slide, please. Thank you. The impact of digital technology on production and consumption activities are obviously the two sort of sides of digital economy that we want to study. Now, here there are various ways in which this impact takes place. One is the channel, economic activities that are delivered through digital channels. For instance, you and I constantly use digital financial services. Now, this is delivery of a service through digital channel. I bought petrol, I need to make payment, I use Google Pay. You bought pizza, you're using Paytm to make the payment, and sometimes I'm buying a good which can also be delivered. In this case, some financial services. Let's say I'm buying a life insurance or a travel insurance product, and the entire transaction, my payment, the receipt of the payment, and the delivery of the economic service is through the digital channel. The second category is digital platforms, which is all of the platforms that you and I are very familiar with, Amazon, Uber, etc., etc. And the third category is the non-financial services related, and we will presently see why we are making a distinction between 1 and 3. The payment and purchase of goods and services through digital means. The first one in the 3 bullets that I have on this slide, the first one primarily refers to money itself as being the commodity, whereas in the third category, there is a separate commodity. And through digital means, the second one is through platforms. All of these are impacting the production and consumption of goods and services by us. Next. Now, the primary distinction of the traditional economics and the digital economics is the use of digital technology in economic activity hugely impacts costs, often reducing cost to a low level, very often approaching zero. Now, this is a significant impact. All of us experience it quite regularly, but I don't think we entirely internalize it. So the interface is primarily the lowering of transaction costs. Next slide, please. The next 4 or 5 slides I will examine the cost in digital economy versus traditional economy. Having identified the cost related impact as the major impact distinguishing digital and traditional economy, we will look at the ways in which costs are impacted. I referred in my last slide to a lowering of transaction costs. Now, the way this works is millions of buyers and sellers are connected in a virtual setting. For instance, Amazon has on the selling side literally millions of sellers, and on the purchasing side a lot of us who are millions of buyers, but each meeting the other, effectively not even meeting the other, each connecting with the other in a virtual setting. Now, how does the digital platform generate the trust that is required? For instance, if I were to meet you on the road and didn't know anything about Naman Kapoor before this interaction, I don't even know he's a student of SV, we meet each other, and let's say I'm a salesman trying to sell something to Naman Kapoor. Naman has no way of knowing, am I selling anything which is of quality? Am I selling anything which is of the description that I claim? And one of the major impact of digital economy is the generation of trust between strangers. How is this trust generated, and how is this trust the basis of the removal of information asymmetry? Because when I meet Naman, let's say in the house cars market, I'm at least physically meeting him. When I'm transacting with him on the digital economy, I don't actually know anything other than perhaps some name that is put there, and I need not put my regular full name, and yet economic transactions take place between me and Naman. Economic transactions that require trust. Trust in what form? Naman is taking a credit risk with me, a credit risk on me, when he is making payment to me for something that I'm going to sell him. He does not really know whether I'm selling him the right stuff, and yet payment has to take place. Digital platforms bridge this trust, and incidentally, this is not something as new as people think. The stock exchanges, which went electronic in the mid-90s, were an identical example. And the word that we use typically in finance to describe that is anonymous order matching. Let's say Naman, to continue with him as the example, is a smart guy who was bought early on when Infosys was still a startup, 1,000 shares of Infosys. He just had a good intuition, and let's say Infosys shares were available in the market, and he acquired 1,000 shares at some throwaway price, $10, $20 per share, and now it's gone through the roof. And Naman wants to go abroad, study in London School or Chicago or wherever, and he needs money. And let's say he decides to put 100 shares for sale. Now, the anonymous order matching platform of a stock exchange made it possible for Naman to put out 100 shares and say, I am willing to sell at a price not less than $1,000 per share. Now, there are many of us, Krishnan, Muskan, Naman, a whole bunch of others who want to buy Infosys shares. Some of us are willing to pay 900, some of us are willing to pay 1100. Effectively, an order matching of Naman's need and my need takes place on the platform. And here is the important part. How is the trust built? Stock exchanges built an intermediate layer. What they did was, Naman did not sell to me. Naman sold to the stock exchange. Stock exchange paid Naman. And I did not pay the money to Naman. I paid the money to the stock exchange. And eventually, the stock exchange transferred the money to Naman and transferred the shares to me. Those of you who have familiarity with commercial law are likely to know there is a phrase in the law of contracts called novation. Substituting my contract with Naman into two contracts, one between Naman and the exchange and the second between exchange and me. By substituting two contracts for one, the intermediary created trust between two strangers. So the idea of creating trust between two strangers using a platform is not very new. It existed during the time of stock exchanges, and when stock exchanges became electronic, that is really when digital platform generation of trust between strangers took place. And then when you have millions of buyers and millions of sellers, then you actually discover optimal prices. And since information gathering is potentially much easier, typically when you have large number of buyers and sellers, what will be the consequence? There will be downward pressure on prices. Can we move to the next slide? The second implication is lower replication costs. Now, remember our public economics principle. When we talk about public goods, we talk about non-rivalry and non-excludability. Digital information is a classic non-rival good. In other words, when information is available digitally, it can be consumed by one person, namely me, without reducing the amount or the quality available to others. If we have a newspaper, which is a physical one sheet, typically, if that contains information at a given point in time, very sort of routinely, only I can consume that information. Whereas when it is digital information, remember it's a non-rival good. Multiple people can consume without the quantity or the quality getting reduced, and subject to whatever are the laws relating to the patents, the IPR protection, intellectual property rights protection. Remember, this information can be reproduced by anybody. And given the non-rivalry nature, the reproduction will be as good as, quote unquote, the original. A, lower transaction costs. B, lower replication costs. Now, some of you, I'm sure a lot of you, being digitally savvy and youngsters, must be sort of very often moving into the NFT world, the non-fungible token worlds. And there are so many jokes these days in this world about NFT images being screenshot and shared across the social media. So this is the second implication of digital economy when compared with the traditional economy. Next slide, please. Clearly, lower transportation costs. Transportation cost as in, and this is somewhat related to the first one, typically we use the transaction cost in a non-transportation sense, since transporting information on the internet is near zero. The cost of transporting digital goods and physical goods is actually lower online, because a lot of the costs associated with transportation of information is lower, plus it enables isolated individuals, somebody sitting far away, I sitting here, now constantly order stuff from a very well-known producer of, you guys may not know this, some of you from Chennai will know it, a very known pickle and a lot of the namkeen type, South Indian type namkeen maker in Chennai called Ganapati's. Likewise, during winter in Calcutta, some of you will know, there is something called Nolen Good, that is the palm jaggery. In the ordinary course, this would have been available only to people who are local. Thanks to the digital world, I am now a participant, and what am I doing? I am hugely expanding the market and I'm increasing the scale of this market. So when isolated companies and individuals plug into the global economy, they expand the size of the market. So the transportation cost reduction is caused by A, transporting of information is zero cost. Physical transportation also gets lowered on account of the scale hugely increasing. The next 2 points, can we move to slide number 9? The next 2 costs are actually a little more interesting and have some more of implications for public policy. Much lower tracking costs. Now, when I normally go to a regular vendor, let's say I purchase all my requirements of, the Rosmarra ke requirements, dal, chawal, sabji. I go to a regular fellow, he may know that I'm fond of the golden delicious apple, not the Kinor apple. He may know that I don't like imported Thai guava, but I prefer desi amrud. But some random guy selling on the road will not know my consumer preferences, my behavioral traits. In the digital economy, this is, we all know this, instantaneously and very almost zero cost recorded and stored. The consequence is consumer spending, preferences, behavioral traits are all recorded, and all of us are both the gainers and victims of this. Before you can ask a question, Google auntie gives you the answer before you can actually type the question. And so can a whole bunch of digital platforms. And as a result, there are clearly some very good positive implications. Personalized or one-to-one markets can be created. So remember, we know from our traditional economics days that a large, perfectly competitive market has millions of buyers and sellers. But the traditional market did not have personalized one-to-one markets. This large economy of millions of buyers, millions of sellers also has one-to-one markets, personalized one-to-one markets, and that is also the reason why there is an interest in the economics of privacy. How should economists treat privacy? Earlier, privacy was largely a public policy issue, a law issue, maybe a social issue. But the fact that this entire concept of privacy has serious implications for consumer data, consumer tracking, and creation of one-to-one markets makes privacy now an economic concept. Now, is it an intermediate good or is it a final good? There are a whole bunch of implications. We'll not get into that. But I think what is important is this will generate a new sort of area of interest for economists. Personalized advertising, targeting people based on analysis of data relating to consumption of amrud and concluding this guy is therefore likely to prefer namkeens of this kind, pickle of that kind. All of that is happening. So the lower tracking cost is the fourth implication. The next one, slide number 10, please. Lower verification costs. Now, this actually cuts both ways. And there's this very famous statement that on the internet, nobody knows if you are actually a dog. Now, maybe they'll ask you questions about I'm not a robot, but there are a whole bunch of AI and sort of other types of algos we can actually handle this. So we start with the premise that on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. But exactly the opposite is also true. Since the costs relating to verifying identity and reputation are considerably reduced, a good quality search engine can actually conclude whether you are a dog, and if you're a dog, what is your name, what kind of dog food do you like, when do you bark, kinds of details that it would have been impossible to sort of check earlier. Closely related to the earlier one, but with separate implications, is this lower verification cost. Now, you are constantly undertaking transactions. For instance, a whole bunch of e-commerce providers use, say, something like Razorpay for their financial interface. So Manya, Ashi, Anjali are all regular purchasers of various things, books, music, some consumable, biscuits. But very often, if the payment platform is Razorpay, Razorpay is happily putting this data together and actually making a good quality assessment of creditworthiness of Ashi. So there may be an enormous amount of information on Ashi's payment pattern based on which Razorpay or some other financial service provider intermediary can actually create information and ratings, previous transactions, and others who have interacted with you are effectively sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously giving feedback. All of this tantamounts to lower verification costs. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So in the balance 15 minutes, I will now move on to implications of the digital economy and what does it mean for public policy. Number one, intuitively obvious, price comparison is much easier. Lower search costs make it very easy for consumers to compare prices. And when you start comparing prices and you can effortlessly, in terms of physical effort and in terms of cost of the effort, make comparisons, you actually end up putting downward pressure on prices for similar products. But implication number one, price comparison made easier. Now, the second one is somewhat similar to the internet does not know I'm a dog type argument. Digital searches are actually linked to both more and less variety because of various factors. There is more in terms of choice. If you want to, you can, the variety of goods and services available, including niche markets, are so much that you can keep endlessly searching. Because earlier you could only buy palm jaggery. Now you can perhaps buy palm jaggery early winter from these kinds of palms. Coconut palm as distinct from palmyra. So there is potentially an entire variety of goods and services, including niche markets, that you can search and identify as consumers and which can be catered to by producers. On the contrary, before you even start searching, effectively, based on previous searches, the friendly neighborhood search engine will keep popping up suggestions, and more often than we realize, we actually get guided by those pointers. People who bought this also bought. Plus, it's analytics based, very often good research based. So it sorts, it lists both on the basis of popularity with other consumers and relevance for you. And actually, then it crowds my activity, your search, all of us towards particular directions. What is that? That is actually less choice, less variety. So the second implication is somewhat of a contradictory implication. There are forces here which increase the availability of choice and availability of variety. And there are forces here which are pushing you towards less variety. Third point, there is a tendency to create echo chambers, again related to the second part but distinct. The echo chambers are others are buying and everybody is saying this. Now the first guy may be saying it because he's been made to say it, but he gets another 200 fellows to say it, and somebody may be highly regarded by a lot of us, and we tend to then keep looking for cues that come from him or her. So this creation of echo chambers actually narrows choice, narrows consumption. Fourth, much better matching of supply and demand. Now, airlines, for instance, had figured this out much earlier than the rest of the world. There is a standard economics principle in transportation, particularly in airlines, which is the yield maximization or yield optimization principle, which is you may think this is one Air India flight with 450 seats, but long ago airlines figured out this is not one Air India flight with 450 seats. These are 450 separate flights, because I can actually sell each seat somewhat differently. Seat with a leg space, seat next to the window, seat which is next to emergency exit, seat which is next to emergency exit with a series of food options. Now, there's a whole variety of additions and sort of what they call, features, the bells and whistles, as it's called in consumer economics, making the product, it may look like one airline flight. Each seat becomes a distinctly marketable commodity, primarily because the costs associated with selling each seat has dramatically come down because you've digitized the information. So this enables much better matching of supply and demand. And it also enables, for instance, I'm sure you know, like Uber, airlines have had surge pricing for a long time. And plus, if Dr. Reddy decides to go to Tirupati today and has been called by the TTD authorities for a meeting on something to do with all constituent colleges, around this time, he may find the 1:40 p.m. flight is actually packed, price is very high. So he will think, he may call the authorities in Tirumala and say, Tirupati, hey boss, bahut zyada daam hai aaj, why don't we do this meeting tomorrow morning? But in another 40 minutes, the airlines discovers that there's actually not as much demand as it appeared, because the various other people who are selling X number of seats, those various intermediaries who book flights on behalf of airlines, they've all surrendered by about 11:30. Ki boss, ticket nahi bika hai. Now we have surrendered 20 seats. Suddenly, the price plunges. Half an hour before the closing of the window, the price may plunge by half an hour. And based on that, Mr. Reddy may not only decide to go, may decide to take 2 more people for the Tirupati meeting. So, transportation capacity, better and more optimal utilization. The fifth economic implication, delivery of good or service through online channels can also have effects on various surrounding economic external circumstances. For instance, it leads to very often centralization, because ordinarily it would be very difficult for a boss to decide minor decisions, because the cost of gathering information required to be decided at boss level would, in the classical old organizational style, have been so much that bosses would have delegated. Let's go back to the same example with the permission of Dr. Reddy. Let's say 25 years ago, if Dr. Reddy had to go to Tirumala or Tirupati for a meeting, his boss has permitted him to travel, and it's an important meeting. Regardless of price, Dr. Reddy, please travel to Tirupati, conclude the meeting and come back. But today, boss has access to a lot of information. Boss can check live on airline and other platforms which sell airline tickets and tell Dr. Reddy, boss, we will wait till 11:30, 12. If the price drops, only then you go. Otherwise, we will save money because we will put that money for something else. So this is one implication I'm giving as an example. There are lots of implications on the effects, the external surrounding circumstances. Then this entire economy of open source. The online channels has a lot of implications for open source. But before I go to open source, another sort of partly related to open source, but more related to the previous point is, they found, research has found, streaming of music through platforms and digital platforms like Spotify has actually led to displacement in privacy. The legal music consumption has increased as a result of digitization. More people are buying and less people are able to buy through the piracy channels. So this is as yet initial evidence. This is data of 2013-15, but a whole lot of people like Hal Varian are studying this more. But the point being made is delivery of good or service through online channels has a lot of implications for surrounding external circumstances. Economy of open source, it may look like I'm an open source guy and I'm putting out stuff as public goods. Now, it may not appear to have direct benefits for private actors. When I'm doing open source, it looks like I'm only benefiting the community, but studies have shown that a lot of people watch what I have put out, and some of the intangible benefits that have been identified are somebody who is watching my skill could be a potential employer. So I've put it out in open source primarily as a public service, but it has led to private benefits for me in the form of somebody finding out that I have XYZ skills. The last one is a point I've made earlier, depth of distance. Remote people can now access. Effectively, I am ordering globally, and it's a great benefit for consumers. The next 5 minutes, since I will reach 10:30, I'll conclude. I have only 2 more slides. Slide number 12, please. Public policy response. The early worries that internet and digital economy would undermine local regulation and national sovereignty. These worries haven't gone yet. And let me elaborate. Ordinarily, in the Indian Constitution, some of you may be familiar with these subjects, taxi services or retail. These are subjects that are dealt with in something called List 2 of the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution. These are subjects that are dealt with by state governments and state legislatures. So India is a union of states. There is a union government, popularly called the central government, and there are a whole bunch of state governments. Some subjects are with the union parliament, some subjects are with the state legislatures. Now, internet, by making Amazon, by making Uber a reality, has actually shifted things. Somewhat similar to the centralization point I made in the earlier slide. Effectively, who is the regulator for Uber? Who is the regulator for Amazon? It is turning out to be Government of India. So local regulation is taking a back seat, and it may not even be Government of India. If the national sovereignty may be also slipping, it may become very ill-defined global regulation. So one important public policy implication, and there has to be a response. Currently, public policy is not responding very vigorously, still figuring out, and that's why the Digital Act, the Digital Data Privacy or Data Act is still sort of going back and forth because some of these implications are not clear. Second point, unique points of new market failure, contract enforcement, and live example, Fast and Fresh is a site, e-commerce site which sells very good quality fruits and vegetables. I'm a regular buyer. Day before yesterday I ordered, just coincidentally, I just checked yesterday with that entire list and I discovered papita and Kinor apple both had not been delivered but had been billed for. Now, this won't happen ordinarily in the physical economy. This happens regularly. Plus, there are, and that comes in the grievance redress category, contract enforcement, digital fraud. Contract enforcement is you promised something, delivered something else, and a whole bunch of digital frauds that you're familiar with. Next slide, last slide. Way forward. Use of personal data is a necessity in digital economic activity, but it presents a whole set of issues of privacy, which are now treated as a fundamental right. Regulation clearly is called for. I brought it out in the last slide. Regulation is necessary in the interest of the consumers, but Is it going to harm innovation? Because a lot of these developments have taken place because they were not tightly regulated. And this is a big dilemma. You will see this repeatedly in the Honorable Minister for IT, Mr. Chandrasekhar, in all his interactions on this subject, is constantly worried about resolving this conflict. Third, very often we hear about we will have national e-commerce because the the thought that Amazon is an old East India company, whereas our neighborly neighborhood Indian e-commerce giant is something of an angel, in my opinion, completely wrong. We tend to overlap business objectives and conflate it with national objectives. A national retail champion is superior to global. I don't know how. For consumers, it makes no difference. It makes difference for the profits of the entity. Calling it national as yet, I think, is not yet based on full information. And with that, let me conclude. It is now exactly 10:30 as per my watch. I will stop here, and in case there is time and there are questions, I'm happy to come back. Thank you so much, Naman, and thank you so much, Dr. Reddy.
Yes, Dr. Krishnan, sir. Insightful session. I'm sure everyone present here learned a lot today. I would now like to invite our Vice Principal, Dr. Venkateswara sir, to address the gathering.
Good morning and namaskar to Sri Krishnanji, and I welcome Sir on behalf of Venkateswara College. It was a lovely talk. I really enjoyed it. Perhaps the work schedule that we are having in the college nowadays, had I spoken at the beginning, perhaps I would have missed such a lovely lecture. So it's a God-sent delay on my part that has made me able to listen to wonderful lecture of yours, sir.
Thank you so much.
So I welcome also the other speaker, Dr. Seema Gaur ji, say our economics department, to be precise, is a wonderful, vibrant department, and Brahma Reddy has been, in fact, in the forefront to bring lovely speakers to make us understand. And it's a privilege for all our students that he has been able to connect such wonderful persons from the civil services as well as the professional economies, so that the children can understand both about the public policy things as well as the other economic issues that we talk about. And when you were talking about this digital economy, in fact, I being a commerce teacher, and you were mentioning about the Contract Act, the innovation, and etc. So how do we just travel together, the economics and commerce? It was really a wonderful thing to listen from your mouth, sir. And with all the support that the department has been provided to the administration vis-a-vis the administration to the department, this Blisspoint has been a source of prestige to Sri Venkateswara College. So it has been and was all the time one of the waiting in activity to happen for over, at least to my remembrance, for over a period of at least 25 years in this college history. So therefore, I congratulate the entire Economic Association, the students primarily, because the students of Venkateswara, maybe the economic students or the commerce students, we find such a great entrepreneurial skill in them that they can organize very mega events too. So they have the ability, and I'm really thankful to Brahma. And once again, I thank today's speaker, Sri Krishnanji, and the other speaker to come for enlightening our students and also be part of this event being in the year of the Diamond Jubilee of Sri Venkateswara College, New Delhi. Thank you, Brahma. Thank you, sir. Once again, welcome to Venkateswara platform.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. I would just like to inform everyone that all the questions will be taken up at the end of the session. I would now like to welcome the guest of honor for Blisspoint 22, Dr. Seema Gaur, an ex-IES officer retired as Principal Economic Advisor, Government of India, with more than 36 years of diversified experience in key economic ministries and regulatory bodies. She also holds a degree in law and diplomas in development economics and public administration. She was also India's lead negotiator in negotiations for competition chapter in trade and investment agreements with RCEP, EU, etc. She has given talks as an invited expert in many international conferences and published papers in peer-reviewed journals, and has also written on key economic issues including digital economy and competition law in books published by globally reputed publishers. We are certain that your thoughts and opinions shall be of immense value to the students present today, ma'am. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Very good morning to all of you. Professor Krishnan sir, Dr. Kumar, Dr. Reddy, faculty members, association members and dear friends, I am delighted to participate in this important session. Thanks, sir, for discussing digital economy in a very comprehensive manner, including the definitions and economic concepts, sir. I have also benefited immensely, sir. I would just add some of my reflections on the subject, sir. Everything that can be invented has been invented. With these sweeping words, Commissioner of US Patents recommended abolition of his office in 1899. Spectacular had been the wave of innovations in the late 19th century. How wrong these words have proved. Digital technologies in 21st century are transforming all aspects of our life, including the way we interact, work, shop, and receive goods, services, information, as well as how value is created and exchanged. Boundaries between digital and traditional are blurring as technological change permeates every facet of our life. Unprecedented COVID-19 crisis has further revealed the economy, which is fast taking shape in front of our very eyes, the digital economy. But what is digital economy? This term first appeared in 1995. Today, this term encompasses a dizzying array of technologies and their applications. It is founded on the interconnectedness of people, organizations, and machines, which results from internet, mobile devices, wireless networks, etc. TechCrunch in 2015 wrote, Uber, the world's largest taxi company, owns no vehicles. Facebook, the world's most popular media owner, creates no content. Alibaba, the most valuable retailer, has no inventory. And Airbnb, the world's largest accommodation provider, own no real estate. Something unprecedented is happening. Digital markets are characterized by rapid innovation with the creation of new technologies, new platforms, new products and services, and new markets, and quantum leap in performance. They may be highly disruptive and displace established firms and products, but generate enormous benefits for consumers with far-reaching effects on the economy and society. Let's just take the examples of disruptions in retail by Amazon and in ride-sharing by Uber. Amazon used the internet to transform retailing worldwide, a disruption that is still happening. In India, very soon, drones will be delivering various products to our homes. Uber has forever transformed the way we travel. We move locally. As sir mentioned, two-sided and multi-sided platforms like Amazon, Uber, Airbnb, etc., they are synonymous with the digital economy. And they facilitate interaction between users belonging to separate groups and sites. They have dramatically transformed the way we search for information, shop, read books, listen to music, and watch video entertainment and conduct our meetings. As Sir said, digital platforms connect market participants together in a virtual world, generate trust, and eliminate or reduce transaction costs associated with the traditional markets. Rapid growth of e-commerce on digital platforms like Amazon is creating digital global marketplaces, enabling MSMEs to participate without creating their own costly supply chains. Disruptions caused by COVID-19 pandemic over the last 2 years have given the biggest push to digital transformations the world over, and the future is arriving faster than expected. As countries face repeated lockdowns, school closures, and shutdowns of entire industries, whether for remote schooling, e-commerce, medical consultation, or working from home, have become the necessity rather than a choice. They have kept citizens connected, kept lines of communication open, kept media from around the world accessible, as well as allowed companies and governments to do their job. Some of these changes may be irreversible, leading to structural changes in the economy and society. As far as India is concerned, the future is already here. During COVID pandemic, digital platforms became the only connection to the outside world as government, businesses, work, education, and monetary transactions moved online overnight. COVID crisis has proved to be a tipping point for digitization in India, in particular for adoption of e-commerce and contactless digital payments. As for a PhonePe report, presently amount of money that travels digitally in India is more than the GDP of 21 countries. The winning combination of Digital India, launched in 2015 with the JAM Trinity, that is Jan Dhan account, Aadhaar, and mobile, is driving digital adoption in India. Growing internet and mobile penetration, availability and affordability of smartphones, low-cost data plans, and the shift from offline to online shopping channels are giving a fillip to the spread of digital technology. Let's have a look at the economics of digital economy. Shapiro and Varian propounded modern theory of information economy in 1999. Technology changes, economic laws do not. Later, Krugman and Wells also said the principles of economics remains the same as ever, and the issues raised by information goods are not new. So economics remains the same, or does it? Some scholars hold that while economic laws may not change, some fundamentals of digital economy may be different from the fundamentals of traditional economy. Studying digital economics starts with the question of what is different, what is easier to do when information is represented by bits rather than atoms. In 1776, Adam Smith published the book The Wealth of Nations, where he presented that three main production factors, labor, land, and capital in combination, produce a company's final result. Almost 250 years later, it is not enough to possess these three only, as all successful companies have them. To drive competitive advantage in the global digital economy, companies must add one more production factor, and that is knowledge and skills. Today, innovators with brain power can disrupt, but by relying largely not on capital but ideas. This is why digital economy is also sometimes referred to as the knowledge economy. Digital economy generates enormous amount of data. For example, our online purchases and payments generate electronic data on. Digital technologies have reduced cost of collection, storage, processing, and analysis of data. Therefore, data has surpassed land, capital, labor to become an extremely important factor of production. China now recognizes data as a new factor of production. The digital platforms gather and process data generated and infer new insights existing products, enhance efficiency, and also enter newer markets. Access to data and ability to use it effectively is a source of market power and the driving force fueling the growth of likes of Google, Amazon, Facebook, and many more. As you all know, efficiency criteria goods and services should be sold at the marginal cost of producing them. Let's look at how it can be applied in digital markets as costs fall substantially and may approach even zero. Digital goods are inherently non-rival, as Sir mentioned, as the consumption by one individual does not prevent consumption by another individual. For example, duplication and delivery of a computer program may take place via download and is therefore associated with this implies that digital goods can typically be reproduced and distributed at nearly zero marginal cost. If they were to be priced according to close to zero marginal cost, no one would be willing to produce them any longer. Question is how to structure pricing of many non-rival zero cost goods. Many digital markets such as search engines, social networks, network operating systems, and e-commerce are highly concentrated and have been dominated by one or a few players for many years. Such markets are typically characterized by rapid innovation, large fixed sunk cost, low marginal cost of production, non-rivalrous data, network effects, supply-side economies of scale and scope, market tipping, dependence on intellectual property rights, common standards for interoperability. Let me discuss a very special feature of digital platforms, which is largely responsible for rapid growth of digital platforms. It is their network character generating network effects. In such cases, benefits for consumers depend on the size of the network. The more participants there are in a telephone network, a social network, or an online exchange, greater the number of users, greater the network effect, and greater the value created by the platform. These effects can be both direct or indirect. Social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter benefit from the direct network as their value grows as a direct result of more users. Indirect network effects occur when a platform depends on two or more user groups, such as user and developers, or buyers and sellers. Network effects are enhanced by more applications being created for successful platforms such as Android, and in turn attracting more developers in a virtuous cycle. Such indirect network effects function something like economies of scale on the demand side, making larger platforms more attractive to potential customers. Digital goods and services are typically produced at initial high fixed cost involved in creating infrastructure, R&D, etc., but zero or little variable cost. Economies of scale imply that the average cost of serving users would fall with increasing scale. Hence, once established, digital firms can grow quickly by expanding their operations to new users at minimum average cost and the lowest price. In other words, which is ahead stays ahead. Economists have long extolled the virtues of competitive markets. Competition in digital markets is different in some ways from competition in traditional markets. Interplay of various forces such as network effects and economies of scale may confer competitive advantages and create entry barriers in the market. This may tip the market in favor of first mover firm, and the network with the largest number of subscribers wins out. Here, hence, is for the market. Instead, within the market, unlike traditional markets, this result may be winner takes all or winner takes most, resulting in monopoly or concentrated market structure with dominant players enjoying huge profits. Quick examples are Google, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, etc. Does it appear that digital technologies are changing organization of firms, manner of doing transactions, and dynamics of market? Markets can be very dynamic and very difficult to understand. Business models in digital economy are constantly evolving, and the nature of competition is dynamic due to continuous innovation. For example, many successful e-commerce firms like Amazon are moving into physical spaces as their users are demanding an integrated user experience between their physical and digital worlds. Clearly, Some aspects of digital economy may not fit well in the traditional economic models and may require new definitions or new interpretations. A key economic policy challenge is to keep the digital markets competitive and prevent the exploitation of market power. Antitrust or competition authorities all over the world have been investigating practices adopted by Facebook. There is no unanimity, however, regarding competition intervention in digital markets. One view does not support it, as constant and rapid innovation would make incumbents' positions of the market power impossible to maintain. Other view supports competition intervention, as special characteristics of these markets discussed earlier may help to maintain the market power of incumbents over time and use it to thwart competition. The critical issue here is that incentive to innovate, which is the bedrock of digital market, should not be dampened. There is also the issue of how to show consumer harm by companies whose core offerings are free, or as in Amazon's case, quite cheap. To illustrate an example of Facebook's acquisition of Instagram and WhatsApp, all of us are using all these three, which have been challenged by the US competition authorities as anti-competitive. Facebook says that their investments in Instagram and WhatsApp transformed them into what they are today. And they have been good for people and businesses. Until now, it has been an open question whether the non-price harm theories will succeed in court. A federal court judge in January 2022 has put his stamp of approval on the theory that a monopoly can harm consumers even when its product is free. This is an important development in regulation of big digital platforms. This logic could apply to Google Search, Amazon Retail, or Apple's App Store, and many others who are in the midst of defending themselves from various antitrust actions all over the world. Let's look at how digitization is impacting work, so-called future of work, as some of you will be entering the job market soon. Digitization is reducing demand for routine and manual tasks, while increasing demand for low and high-skilled non-routine tasks. Digital technologies will shape the future of collaborations between humans and machines and impact the type of jobs that will be needed in the future. Digitally transformed work may offer increased productivity, increased flexibility in terms of the working hours, work locations, and work content, less need of a dedicated workspace, greater work-life integration, and the list goes on. The COVID-19 pandemic has fast-tracked these emerging trends and caused organizations to accelerate future of work. Coming to skills, what kind of skills would be needed in digital economy? Digital building block skills would include cloud computing, data analytics, digital marketing, digital security, to name a few. Business enabler skills would comprise of skills such as business process management, project management, and data communication. Soft human skills like critical thinking, analytical skills, problem solving, creativity, collaboration, communication, and relationship building have become key to the digital economy. Perhaps the most important needed skill of digital economy is agility and a willingness for lifelong learning. As you may be aware, India has emerged as the third largest startup ecosystem in the world after the US and China. Young entrepreneurs in India are trying to solve critical challenges in health, education, agriculture, etc. through startups based on the digital technologies. I am sure that some of you would join this ongoing startup revolution in India. We need to be aware that fast emerging, all-pervasive digital economy is not only beneficial, but also poses many risks. Sir mentioned to some of these issues, such as unauthorized access to data, abuse of consumer data, abuse of privacy, cyber crimes, including frauds, cyber attacks, hacking of energy and transport networks, etc., leading to disruption of operations, system shutdowns, and financial and reputational losses. Let me conclude by saying that the digital future has arrived. Mastering the digital transformation is no easy feat, but it is likely to be the defining core competency of the 21st century. Through concerted efforts, let's all prepare, contribute, and reap its benefits while effectively managing the disruptions caused by it and minimizing the risks posed by it. And role of educational and research institutions is going to be very, very important in preparing students and researchers to manage digital economy. And individually, all of us have to be prepared to face the digital future, to benefit from it, to face it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an insightful session. And before we move on to the Q&A section, I would just like to request our principal, ma'am, Professor Sheila Reddy, to address the audience.
Yeah, has Madam joined?
Yes, sir, ma'am had joined in between the session right now, and that's why we wanted to address the audience before we move on to the next section of the session.
But I didn't see ma'am joining. Only vice principals are joined with the principal's account.
Okay, sir. So we can just ask her to address the session. Ask her to address the audience after the session. Then.
Yes.
So,
that's okay.
So now, thank you, ma'am, for your for your words. And right now, I would like to request the speakers if they would mind a Q&A session. And I would just like to ask the audience if they would be if they would like to unmute and ask the questions, then they can just unmute. Or if they want to add the questions in the chat box, then I would be willing to read out the questions and you can kindly answer those questions. Please start filling in the questions in the chat box. If I was inaudible before, I would just like to remind everyone that in the next 2 minutes, you can please fill in the questions you have in the chat box, or you could unmute and ask questions from our speakers themselves. So we've got one question, which one of the audience members has asked. Digital economy is definitely more convenient, but isn't it more prone to frauds? So could you please kindly answer that question?
Yeah. Seema, do you want to go first?
Please, sir, please go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. Prima facie, yes, because I think the medium is more easily manipulatable, but equally, the fact that there is enormous traceability in the digital world means that frauds are also traceable. We know which machine, and it requires differential and perhaps additional state capacity to be able to nail down the fraudster. But the point that it is both more convenient and more likely to be prone to frauds is well taken.
Sir, can I just add to it?
Yeah, please.
Sir, as all of us now, making payments using digital means, whether on phone or our laptops and all, certainly risks for fraud have increased. And okay, whatever happens after something has happened, that's a different thing. But we have to be very cautious when using these digital means. And for example, sir, one thing that has come to my notice is lot of links are sent to you. Okay, you click on this and that thing happens. And banks are always reminding us that we are not asking for any personal information. We are not sending these links and all. So this actually underscores the need for being, aware. We should not only be participant in digital economy, we should be well aware of its risk, and at personal level, how we can be careful to minimize this risk. I think that's a very important part, to minimize these frauds happening to us. Thank you.
I agree.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. Now, our next question is from Raghav Puri. Raghav is asking, what is the impact of digital economics or digital economy on wars, like in case of hacking by nations and ongoing crisis right now?
So, the impact of digitization on wars is a huge topic, and certainly I'm not the expert on this. I will leave it to Seema to decide if she wants to. But, there is an aspect of digital economy which is used in a warlike manner. We very often hear that countries, for instance, which want to, let's say, wage war on India, don't have to actually wage war in the conventional manner. If you parallelize a massive transactional database, the digital payments database, you actually create as much chaos as you will create in war. So the fact that, like other things, wars will also change because of digitization is a point. Conventional war itself will change because of digitization, but I don't think that's the topic, related to what we are discussing. In the economics sort of sphere, it's easier to launch war by an enemy without it seeming like war, without moving one troop, without touching the army, by attacking economic installations, because all economic installations are now digital. So that is where I would think the difference is coming.
Yeah. I have a question. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir. Very morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir, in the union budget, Honorable FM has proposed that the RBI shall come up with a digital currency of its own, and it is the first official statement by the government of India. Sir, your views on how it is going to promote and accelerate and take the idea of digital transactions close to the common man?
Thank you. We still don't know the full details of the CBDC, the central bank digital currency. On your question, how will it take transactions close to the common man? I think we need to understand that our payment system is enormously digitized already. So if somebody wants to make a large or a small payment electronically, your financial transaction payment or a payment which is for purchase of goods and services, digital means of making payments already exists. Now, how will this, how will CBDC be an improvement on my ability to pay Amazon or some e-commerce provider is the real question that we need to ask. Currently, all payments, let's say make a payment to Seema on Google Pay. Currently, it is respectively going through our banks. I may instruct my banker. Effectively, I am telling Google, but Google is telling my banker to debit my bank account, and then Google is also telling Seema's bank account to credit her bank account. So all of the digital current payments are intermediated by the banking system because the payment system interface eventually happens through banks. Now, will the CBDC bypass these mechanisms? We don't know. So there are various designs of CBDC. Theoretically, and purely theoretically, I repeat, I could have an account with the Reserve Bank of India, and Seema could have an account with the Reserve Bank of India, and then the two of us transact not through my SBI and her PNB, but directly like banks do today, debiting and crediting us respectively in our respective RBI accounts. I don't think that is being thought of. So we need to wait and see what is the nature of the CBDC, the central bank digital currency that is being introduced, number one. Number two, my own senses for the common man, the existing digital payments interface, by and large, I'm making a general statement. I'm sure there are lots of grievance related issues, but the interface is already available, reasonably frictionless, reasonably low cost. So I think there the user experience is unlikely to get better with CBDC. I'll stop here. I'm sure Seema has more to add.
No, sir, I have nothing to add. You have explained quite well, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for answering that question, sir.
Yeah, so may I come in? This is Amit Jha. And sir, and my question goes to Seema ma'am. Ma'am, we have been discussing digital economics, and you were discussing the part that it involves huge fixed cost and probably and lower marginal cost in due course of time. So, aren't this an example of natural monopoly? And if this is an example of natural monopoly, then how is the case that we have a lot of players who are behaving as natural monopolies?
You are absolutely right. The situation is exactly like natural monopoly, where economies of scale due to due to lower high fixed cost and lower marginal cost. But you see, like if you look at the Google, for example, Google really doesn't have too many competitors. So it depends on the sector. But in retail, you see, okay, while we may say Amazon is a dominant player, but there are so many other players, and Amazon's dominance is not like Google. So I think these network effects, economies of scale, etc., while they confer the advantages which provide, sort of case for natural monopolies or being a dominant player, but there is also the question of innovation as well as new technologies. Once a very superior technology comes, it is quite possible that a player which is entrenched in the market, it is dominant in the market, but a superior technology comes, while it may not be able to displace it entirely, it may also develop its own network, and that is why you see in some markets like retail or even ride sharing, we have Ola, Uber, and now I think a couple of other players are coming. But in the search engines or online advertisements, Google is very well entrenched. I think it differs from sector to sector.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks a lot, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering the question. Now we have a few more questions in the chat box while you were speaking, so I'll just let you know. So Divya has asked, digital economy is a product which doesn't get altered by consumption, which reduces competition, but indirectly, doesn't it also increase the competition between countries to enhance their economy faster than the other?
Sir, you would perhaps like to answer it?
You know this better, Seema.
Well, I think it's a very generalized question. I think there is no doubt digital technologies are providing, competitive advantages not only to the individual companies but to the entire nations. And today, all the nations in the world to become technologically advanced and embrace digital economy and society as fast as possible. And in fact, last 2 years, this COVID crisis actually has given a real push. I mentioned it in my talk. It has really given a push to the adoption of digital technologies. And now, even very developing countries, small countries like Vietnam and some other countries, they are emerging. Estonia, they are becoming, emerging as of digital technologies. Absolutely, there is a sort of race who reaches fast. And as I mentioned, in the market, there is first mover advantage even on a global level. There may be first mover advantages even at nation level.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, would you like to add anything else to that?
So only marginally, this impact of, let's say, the big, digital companies on competition, it's not, I think, entirely clear and one way. I'm sure you've read, excellent pieces recently in The Economist, which keep asking this question: is Apple a hardware company? Is Apple a software company? Is Apple now in competition with Google? Are they both in competition with Amazon? So the number of digital companies may be small, but this winner takes all makes them constantly enter each other's comfort space and keep sniping at each other, hugely reducing costs. Now, I'm not saying, therefore, it is necessarily an unmitigated blessing. It has other implications. And for instance, the US Competition Law Agency is now vigorously looking at impact on labor. So not only impact on consumers, which is the traditional view of competition economics, but impact on labor, on wages. So I think what is happening to competition as a result of digital economy is complex, and I don't think the answer is yes, no, one way or the other way. I think we need to study this more.
Thank you, sir, for answering that question. Now, moving on to the next question, Abhinav has asked, as stated by both the speakers, data and information are centerpieces to a digital economy. Companies like Google and Amazon use user info to create an integrated and efficient experience. What is the trade-off between privacy and economic efficiency, and which is more important?
So I briefly touched upon this in my presentation. There is no one answer to this question. It goes back to our standard constitutional debates. When does freedom of speech end, and when does my right to reputation begin? So if one of you decides to go and say that this lecture is useless, this fellow did not know what he was talking about, and he was talking complete nonsense, it's perfectly valid. So it's a viewpoint. You have a right to free speech, but should wasn't just a bad lecture. I think this guy was trying to sell us some spurious stuff. He has an interest in making us think in a particular way so that he or the companies that he is associated with or his friends are associated with, we can make money. Let's say such a thing is said. Will you still call this free speech? It is free speech, but as that famous saying goes, the right to swing my arm ends when Naman's nose begins. I can't say I have a right to swing my arms, but keep using the argument to swing my arms and keep hitting your nose. So all rights have to be balanced with implications for other people with same rights and for society as a whole. So you've identified clearly there is economic efficiency in Amazon or Flipkart or X or Y getting more and more information about me, but it violates my privacy. So one thing on which there appears to be unanimity is consent based. Let it be with my consent, and two, let my consent also be based on full knowledge and implications, because we keep signing off, I agree, endlessly when we open our mobiles and our computers. Now, it's actually impossible to read the I agree. It is 12 pages and you do and the whole thing runs. But you may have agreed to 500 things bartering away your rights. Now, the Data Protection Act is an attempt at exactly resolving this balance. And Abhinav may have a view on the balance, Divya may have a different view, Raghav and Kasha may have yet another view, and hence society will finally take a view based on what is the societal consensus, which is what the Indian Parliament will try and do. So they will attempt a balance between privacy and economic efficiency. Exactly where will that balance lie? We'll need to wait and watch. Different societies will place the balance at different places. India will place it, I'm sure, very judiciously for the Indian context. So let's wait.
Thank you. Ma'am, would you like to add anything to that?
No. Sir has explained it so much detailed and so beautifully.
Yes. So moving on to the next question. Kasha has asked, why has the RBI been apprehensive about digital economics, and what challenges does digital economics pose to a developing economy?
I think the question is, I would think personally, not entirely happily worded. RBI has been explicitly apprehensive about crypto assets and cryptocurrencies. It has not been apprehensive about digital economics. It's actually our entire Payment Systems Act going back to 2005-6. We've made strides in digital economics far advanced of many countries, many central banks. So that statement I would not entirely agree with. The apprehensions it is expressing about digital currencies, cryptocurrencies and crypto assets is coming from a very clear position, which is we don't even know what we are talking about. When we have clarity on what is the activity or the asset that is sought to be regulated, then we will have an understanding on, does it have consumer protection implications? Does it have financial stability implications? Does it have cross-border flow implications? For instance, India has an act called Foreign Exchange Management Act, and it says an individual is allowed in something called the liberalized exchange management regime a certain amount of fixed dollars that he or she can send abroad for acquiring capital assets abroad. Can India be blind to FEMA-related concerns when you allow cryptocurrencies? India cannot, because India has a FEMA in place. So RBI's concerns are coming from inadequate understanding of the concept of crypto assets and cryptocurrencies by all of us, not understanding the full implications of these, and the fact that they have implications beyond consumer protection for financial stability, for cross-border flows. And I think they've been very clear on this from day one, and they've been repeating it.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, would you like to add anything to that?
No, thank you.
Yes, last but one question. Last question, okay?
Yes, yes, sir.
We have exceeded the time. We need to have timelines because our guests would have some other engagements.
Yes, sir. I completely agree, sir.
Please.
We have one last question from Kasha. Could you tell the impact of the formation of digital university that has been introduced in the union budget of this year?
I actually do not know entirely what it means. I assume we are talking about the entire university being virtual. I'm assuming that is the meaning. If that is it, then I think in the last 2 years, we've all understood a little bit about what virtual education is, what virtual classrooms are. But I think we are also equally clear now the limitations of what virtual classrooms are. A lot of life is not only knowledge. It's about body language. It's about interaction. It's about understanding humans. It's about understanding feelings. Plus, in the entire world of skill, it's learning by doing. If I could make a samosa by watching YouTube and by reading about it on the internet, there would be no Haldiram. Samosa making is not something which is pure theory. There is a lot of skill attached to many activities, and skill by definition is only 30% instruction, 70% learning by doing. I sit by the bawarchi who makes the best samosa and see कि वो exactly किस time पे आलू को निकालता है. When does he pack the aloo? Is the aloo fully boiled? How does he fry it? Etc. etc. And the same thing can be said of pizza, the same thing can be said of computer programming, the same thing can be said of welding, car repairs. So I think there are limitations of what a digital world can do. I'm sure the creators of the digital university know what they're talking about. I would rather like the beautiful phrase that Mr. Chandrasekhar, Chairman Tata Sons, uses. He talks about the phygital world, PHYGITAL. The world will never be now purely physical, nor will the world be entirely purely digital. It will be a phygital world. What degree of physical, what degree of digital will depend on the activity. There are many activities. Our seminar is entirely digital. But I don't think everything can be entirely digital. So the right combination of phi and digi will decide, I think, the success of these kinds of initiatives. I'll stop here and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, would you like to add to that?
No, thank you.
Okay, so that brings an end to the Q&A section. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Krishnan sir, and thank you, Dr. Seema ma'am, for your amazing answers. On top of your amazing session, you handled the questions brilliantly. And I'm sure that out of the people, Kasha, Abhinav, and the rest of the students, their questions had been handled more than appropriately. And now we can move on to the next part of the session. So moving on, music is the strongest form of magic. So here we have a magic-filled musical performance by Kasha Swami of Economics Honors first year. So go ahead.
We can't hear anything, Naman.
Hi, Soumya, whoever is screen sharing, we're not able to hear the audio. So if you could just correct that.
Give me a minute. I'll do that 1 second.
Yes, you can take your time. Soumya, you're still screen sharing. So if you could just sort it out.
more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, until the music video is being figured out, we would like to move on with the program. I think, yeah, I think it.
No,
So
no.
you can stop sharing. We will do this at the end. Let's move on with the program.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Soumya. You can start sharing the website. Moving on with the program, the Economics Association is pleased to release its official website on this auspicious day. The website shall be open to all visitors and contains an overview of our work, our team, our goals, and a large collection of articles and blogs pertaining to the dynamic subject of economics. We are also creating a database of the previous student batches of the Department of Economics. Through this website, the association endeavors to spread the gospel of economic knowledge and aims to contribute actively to academic conversations occurring within the purview of this beautiful subject. I would like to invite our honorable chief guest, Dr. K.P. Krishnan, to inaugurate the website and give us his blessings. Sir, are you here?
I think Sarah had exit. Yeah.
All right, we shall move on with the proceedings then. We
Yes.
thank everyone who contributed to this website, and we shall be releasing the link, and you can have a look at the website and let us know your feedback. Moving on, we would now like to present our annual department magazine, Econ Expressions. The magazine is a meticulously compiled collection of articles centered around various economic themes and written by the members of the editorial department of our association. This year, we also invited entries from undergraduates across the country and featured the best view. We thank the marketing department, who shall be sharing hard copies and soft copies of the magazine and promise that it shall be a delightful read. I would like to invite our guest of honor, Dr. Seema Gaur, to inaugurate the magazine and give us our blessings.
Thank you very much. This is looking very, very interesting. In fact, I would definitely like to go through it. And I can see the students have really, undertaken a lot of efforts in preparing these very, very specialized topics. I'm certainly very keen to, read these things. And even in the presentation aspect, this is looking very attractive. I think Economic Association in this college is really very proactive, very up to date on the themes that are, important in today's economy. I would like to, compliment and congratulate the Economic Association as well as the faculty members who must be their guides. This really looks wonderful. Thank you.
Before Mr. Amit Jha expresses his vote of thanks, we have just learned that the music video is working. So we would like to ask Abhinav to present the screen and showcase the musical performance.
Just wait for a minute. I am asking Krishnan sir whether he could rejoin for this.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Yeah.
In the meanwhile, could anyone please confirm if the music is audible? I'll just play it for 1 second. Oh. It's audible?
It is not audible.
It's not audible.
Not yet.
Just a sec.
Dr. K.P Krishnan, sir. Sir, the Economics Association is pleased to release its official website on this auspicious day, and we would like to invite you to inaugurate the website and give us your blessings to us.
Okay, how do I inaugurate? What do I do?
So we'll just show the website. You can speak a few words and give us your blessings for this website.
Thank you. So this is the website of the Economics Association, is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very, thank you. Thank you so much. It's indeed a pleasure. I used to be, it may sound like the time that Alexander came to India. I'm talking about 1976 to 79, when I was a graduate student at St. Stephen's, an active member of our Economics Association. So in a sense, it brings very nice, happy memories. Happy to kick-start this process, declaring the website open. It's good effort. I'll spend a little time looking at the website later and for what it is worth offer my comments. But knowing the college as I do, I have an association with the college through my son and with the same department, with the same association. I'm sure it's a good effort. I wish you all the very best and lots of fun and happy learning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the information of all the members of association and the students. Sir's son, Vinay Krishnan was our student, and he was too very active in the association activities between 2012 to 15. And I'm even more happy to inform you all presently is in Germany pursuing his higher studies. In fact, I got sir's contact number from him only from one of the his classmates, Mr. Bharat Bajaj. Thank you very much, sir, for your time, sparing your very valuable time. And we'll be very, very happy, sir, once our complete physical activities resume in college. We'll be very happy to invite you to our department and our college. Thank you very much, sir, for your presence.
Look forward. Thank you.
Amit, please go ahead with vote of thanks.
Sir, before the vote of thanks, we would like to try once more with the music video. Apologies for the delay. Sir, can you just wait for 30 seconds? We will just play the music video.
Please share that video link if I can.
मैं गुमसुम हूँ इन राहों की तरह तेरे ख्वाबों में तेरी ख्वाहिशों में जगह ना जाने क्यों है ये रोज का सिलसिला तू रूह की है दास्तां तेरी जुल्फों की ये नमी तेरी आँखों का ये नशा यहाँ खो भी जाऊं तो मैं क्या कसूर है मेरा अफसाने इन लम्हों में खो गए हम घायल थे इन लफ्जों में खो गए थे हम अनजाने अब दिल में तुम हो छुपे हम हैं शहर की परछाइयाँ सांसों की रात है तेरे होठों की है सुबह
Thank you so much, Kasha, for that melodious performance. I would like to invite Mr. Amit Jha, our faculty advisor, to give the vote of thanks.
Hello all, a warm and graceful morning to our chief guest, Dr. K.P. Krishnan, and guest of honor, Dr. Seema Gaur, our teacher in charge, Mr. Brahma Reddy, fellow colleagues, as well as everyone gathered here. It's my privilege to propose vote of thanks speech and acknowledge the contribution of those who worked really hard to make this annual festival of the economics department, Blisspoint, happen. I, Amit Kumar Jha, on behalf of the Department of Economics and the entire fraternity of our institution, first of all, extend my most sincere thanks to the Almighty God for making today's event a resounding success. On behalf of my association, I extend a really hearty vote of thanks to our chief guest, Dr. K.P. Krishnan, and Chief of Honor, Dr. Seema Gaur, who spent time from their busy schedule to grace the occasion. Today, we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this will surely be going to encourage us in our future endeavors. I'm also immensely thankful to our presenters as well as anchors, Naman, Navya, Ridhima, Yash, for making this event really a bliss point for our life. I also extend thanks to all the members of the Staff Association for their enormous cooperation for organizing such an event. A special mention to our respected Principal Ma'am as well as our teacher in charge, Mr. Brahma Reddy, for being the catalyst that stimulated us to do our best and standing as pillar of strength for us. With this, I would like to hand over the mic to, or hand over the stage to the staff association members. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. Before we end the seminar, I would like to request everyone to turn their cameras on for a group picture, especially our chief guest and our guest of honor.
Yes, ma'am is there? Seema ma'am is there? Ma'am, are you there? Where is Seema ma'am? Amit, your photograph, your video seems to be not, normal. You need to rotate.
Rotate. I don't know.
Amit, yeah, you are now.
Sir, I cannot.
But somehow it's coming. You need to rotate it.
Is doing yoga. You are showing laterally.
Yes.
Just rotate your device.
Okay.
Rotate the device. That is the only solution. That's it. Okay. So Seema ma'am is there? I think I don't see ma'am. Okay, please go ahead with some screenshots and other pictures.
Thank you so much. We've taken ample screenshots and we will save the best ones. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Namaste.